I wanted to ask a question. We spoke with James Quilligan the other day, and he just briefly mentioned, complete collapse of the monetary system, something that we have to look forward to in the near future, which is also, the great apocalypse that's upcoming and cataclysm and interpreted differently from multiple worldviews.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if you could speak about the great collapse a little bit.
Don't invest in long-term bonds. Generic approach to things like that. I mean, first of all, it could be right, of course, but you always have. I'm a little suspicious about those things because they always underrate the capacity of the human creative spirit. And we've had catastrophe after catastrophe predicted. And the one I really got involved with was Paul Ehrlich, and that economist, who I'm sure some of y'all know his name. And it was called The Bet for many years. And the bet was that they took the 10 most precious metals, and Ehrlich bet that because they were all running out, that the prices would go up staggeringly in the next 10 years. And the economists, knowing what markets do and how they shift, bet that the price of all 10 precious metals would go down in the next 10 years. And if that was so, it really wreaked havoc with all of Ehrlich and several other environmentalists' economic models. And 10 years later, the price of all 10 precious metals dramatically went down. And that's what we tend to find, is that in environmental circles, there are two different models. One is biological, and one is economic. And biological is ecosystems are fragile, screw it up, and they go downhill. So people like that tend to be much more pessimistic, whereas economists tend to be on the brighter side. Now, recently, economists have gotten into the game of doom and gloom, and it's all going to fall apart and blow up, and it's going to be very bad. If you look at the different altitudes, you find that all of them have some version of it's all going to blow up. And they're all very different about how it's going to blow up. And so red tends to be, although you find this elsewhere, but red really particularly tends to be the survivalists. So they think it's just everything is going to completely collapse, and they're up in Montana now digging bunkers. And you can find them up there, and they're, it's really pretty outrageous, but they're up there and fortifying, getting ready for just the complete collapse of everything. And then all the poor survivors are going to be storming them, wanting their, sea rations and stuff. So they're up there doing that. That's red. Amber thinks that the world is going to hell, and in fact, this is the predicted time now, as predicted in the apocalyptic revelations of John and others, that this is the end of the world. And so we're looking for the Antichrist, and we're looking for this, that, and the other. And the late, great Planet Earth, wasn't that one by Hal? Yeah, that was based on that. And the great thing about them is they have a golden parachute called the rapture. And what happens there is you believe in this, and then right before all of the disaster goes down, you are transported up into heaven, apparently on ecstasy, and up into heaven, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And everybody else is going to just die, And you think if God really loved everybody, that there'd be enough ecstasy to go around, but no, stingy Jehovah. And so orange is then, every now and then gets up with this kind of thing that you're talking about, which is going to be a complete monetary collapse. Y2K was part of it. That was because of computers, though. And, of course, didn't really come to pass. That's only because a lot of people worked very hard to help prevent it, most likely. But this economic collapse is now becoming quite popular. So people there are starting to sense that, and they come out with that version of it. Green, of course, thinks that it's all going to fall apart really tomorrow afternoon, and has for a long time. And it's really understandable. because what we do see happening is really serious depletion of all sorts of crucial, not precious metals, but things like water, basin supplies and stuff like that. It's looking very, very slim in a whole lot of areas. And so, again, you have to be very careful about this. And I, of course, have got right in the middle of the fray recently with my friend Michael Crichton, who claims basically that if you actually look at all of the data, global warming really isn't occurring. And you can go back and forth on this and back and forth on this and back and forth on this. But he basically says he's not arguing one way or the other. He's not saying it is or it isn't. He's saying sit down and look at the data. And he just presents data that you don't get in a lot of publications. And in particular, one of the main organizations used to predict global warming, and it was used for the Kyoto Accords, predicted that over the next century, there would be a 0.01 increase in temperature. And you don't hear about this. Nobody heard about this. So that's all Crichton's saying. Nonetheless, I've sort of seen this fray. It's very hard to decide because you don't know if you're getting all of the facts. You just don't. And that's what's so shocking about it. And some of the facts, of course, are alarming. It really does look bad. But the fact that some parts of Antarctica are falling off is sort of meaningless because the other studies show that the ice thickness is continuing to increase very significantly. So what does it mean? Who are you going to believe? And again, it's all in the interpretation so often. And it's become, you have to be careful because what we're finding is that whatever your altitude in terms of value structures and needs, moral development and so on, will actually govern what a fact means to you. And so it's not that people are lying when they give these dramatically different accounts. It's when green looks at a particular set of values, it will pick out the ones and see the ones that it thinks truly are the most likely, the most meaningful. And you're not getting necessarily a full story from any of them. So I kind of got right in the middle of that. And when we carried a dialogue with Michael Crichton, we got a lot of very positive and very negative, and sort of really stirred that up, which was pretty interesting. And this is something that we just really have to be very careful about in terms of just what it means and who you're going to turn to. And that's going to continue to be an issue for all of us. People at second tier do a much, much, much better job of spotting data on balance and presenting a more balanced picture. But that doesn't mean you're right. The fact that you're second tier doesn't mean you're right. It means you're often right, and it means when you're wrong, you make bigger mistakes.